So let me start with a simple question. How long does it usually take to put together a really good offering memorandum? An hour? A day? All right, I'll get to it right after I finish everything else on my desk, which translates to never. Now, traditionally, building an offering memorandum has been a process, a long process. Gather the data, clean the data, send it to design, revise it, fix it, revise it again, and somewhere along the way, the deal starts to feel like it's aging in dog years. But what if I told you we can now build something that looks institutional grade in about 15 minutes? Not a rough draft, not a good enough, but a real professional investor ready offering memorandum. And that's what we're going to walk through today. I'm your host, Loren Keim, the professor of real estate and your personal commercial real estate coach. And again, thank you for joining me today. Now, this is where the deal goes to, well, let's say take a nap. Look at this timeline. This is the traditional process. Days 1 to 4, you're gathering due diligence, you're pulling reports, you're tracking down that one lease that somehow exists but nobody seems to be able to find. And days 5 to 9 is email ping pong. Can you tweak this? Can you move that logo? Why is this chart upside down? And days 10 to 14, we're fixing errors that somehow appeared somewhere between version 6 and version 11. And by the end of it, you've spent 10 to 40 hours and a few $1,000s to produce something that should have been helping you sell the deal 2 weeks ago. And here's the real problem. It's not just time, it's momentum. In commercial real estate, speed isn't nice to have, it's leverage. The longer it takes to tell the story, the harder it is to keep people interested in actually hearing that story. So this is where things start to get fun. AI has quietly crossed a threshold, and it changes from month to month. It can now do about 80% of the work involved in building that OM automatically. That doesn't mean it replaces you. It means it replaces the parts of the job that you never wanted to do in the first place. Think about the traditional process. Manual data entry, formatting, building charts, rewriting the same property description for the 47th time. AI handles all of that. So instead of spending 10 plus hours per deal, you're spending 15 or 20 minutes of actual thinking time. And the remaining 20%, the polish, the judgment, the strategy, that's still all yours. That's where you add value. So we're not removing the broker, we're removing the busy work. And I don't know about you, but I've never had a client say, wow, that manual data entry really impressed me. Now let's talk about what actually makes a great offering memorandum, because whether it's built in 2 weeks or 15 minutes, the structure still matters, right? At its core, every strong OM tells a story, starting broad and getting more specific. We begin with the market. What's happening? Why does this location matter? We then narrow it into comparables, providing that the opportunity is real. Then the property. What is it? What's it been? And what could it become? And then the financials, where the numbers support the story or occasionally argue with it. And then the executive summary, the hook. This is where investors decide if they can lean in or politely stop reading. And finally, the cover, because let's be honest, people absolutely judge a deal by its cover. AI doesn't change this structure, it just builds it faster and more consistently than most of us can when we're running on our third coffee of the day. Now, the obvious question becomes, which AI tool should I use? And the answer is yes. Different tools are good at different things. If you want structure, case studies, and something that feels like it could survive a graduate level real estate class, a CRE Assistant is fantastic. If you want speed, real speed, where you upload your documents to get something presentation ready almost instantly, Notebook LM is incredibly powerful. And today I'm going to show you how this works in Claude and in Manus, because each of these tools has a slightly different personality. Think of it like hiring assistants. Some are detail-oriented, some are fast, some are creative, and well, some need a little supervision just like interns, right? The key isn't picking one, it's understanding how to use each of them effectively depending on the deal in front of you. Now, before we jump into anything, let's make sure we have all the ingredients. First, we need Notebook LM. That's the first we're going to use today. The good news, at least right now, it's free, which in commercial real estate is a phrase we don't hear nearly often enough. Second, we need your due diligence folder, and that's where the magic really happens. We really do need the rent rolls, the P&Ls, photos, tax bills, basically everything you've been collecting and meaning to organize someday. And here's the key principle. The more you give the AI, the better it performs. You got to think of it like an analyst. If you give them one page, you get one page of insight. If you give them everything, you get something more powerful. And third, I want you to load your brokerage website because Notebook LM can actually pick up your branding, your color, your tones, your style, so that the final product doesn't look like it came from generic real estate template number 7. And one important note, Excel files are not invited to this party. In Notebook LM at least, if your financials live in Excel, and let's be honest, they all do, you want to export them to a PDF first. Yes, you lose some dynamic functionality, but in exchange, the AI actually reads them, which is generally quite helpful. Now this is our path 1. And this is where we start building the backbone of the offering memorandum. We're going to expand this a little bit over the next couple of minutes. Step 1, you give the AI a scenario, and this can be as detailed or simple as you want. But the more specific you are, the better the output. Now think industrial acquisition. Here's the net operating income, here's the cap rate, and here's the story. Step 2, you're going to prompt it. And this is where people overcomplicate things. You don't need a PhD in prompt engineering. You can literally say, create an offering memorandum based on this information, and that's it. And step 3, the output. What you get back is a clean, structured outline that follows the exact logic of a professional offering memorandum: market, property, financials, and summary. In other words, you've just skipped the part where you stare at a blank page wondering how to start, which for most of us is where the projects go to die. Now let's take it a step further, because this is where it starts to feel a little unfair. You can ask the AI to create things that normally take real effort. For example, build me a sales comp table for this asset. Done. Or create a realistic cover image for this property. Also done. And what you're getting back isn't just text. It's formatted tables, visuals, presentation-ready content. And this is the moment where people usually pause and go, wait, I used to spend half a day doing this. Exactly. You're no longer just writing an OM. You're directing production, which is a much better job description. Now we move to path 2, and this is where Notebook LM really shines. And again, we're going to look at a couple of other examples as well. Think of this like feeding the machine. You're dropping in your P&Ls, your rent rolls, your tax bills, your photos, everything that tells the story of the asset. And Notebook LM doesn't just store it, it understands it, it connects it, and it uses it as the foundation for everything it creates. The rule here is simple. More context equals better output. This is not the time to hold back. If you've got 5 years of financials, great. If you've got service contracts, hey, throw them in. If you've got photos that actually make the property look good, definitely include those. And again, no Excel at Notebook LM. Excel is like that one friend who's great in small groups but doesn't travel well. You've got to convert it to a PDF, and then everybody starts to get along. Now let's set up your workspace. You open Notebook LM, you click, this is hard to follow, create new notebook. And just like that, you've got a container for your deal. Everything you upload lives here. Everything you generate pulls from here. So organization really matters. And I'm going to do a live sample in a couple of minutes. Name it properly. Use the property address, not deal 1 or new project final version 3. We've all been there and no one wins. Second, again, one notebook per deal. This is critical because if you start mixing multiple properties into one notebook, the AI will do exactly what you told it to do and blend everything together, which might be creative but not necessarily helpful. Clean inputs lead to clean outputs, and in this case, clean outputs lead to faster deals. This is where we actually start feeding the system, and the process is refreshingly technical. You drag, you drop, and that's it. No special formatting, no ritual, no sacrifice a spreadsheet to the real estate gods. Now, what should you upload? Again, everything that tells the story of the asset. P&Ls, rent rolls, photos, yes, all of them. Tax bills, service contracts, market reports. Basically, if you would hand it to an investor, you should hand it to the AI. And what should you skip? Well, your internal email threads, your half-finished notes, and anything that doesn't belong in a professional presentation. Because here's the catch. The AI is very polite. It will try to use everything you give it. So if you upload noise, you get noise out. If you upload signal, you get something that actually sounds like you know what you're doing. This is one of the most underrated steps and one of the biggest differentiators, because without market data, your OM is just a nice-looking brochure. With market data, it becomes an investment story. So inside Notebook LM, you can search the web and pull in real, current market reports. But here's the key: specificity. If you search multifamily market report, you're going to get something broad and generic. If you search Indianapolis multifamily marketing report, March 2026, now you're getting something relevant. And ideally, you bring in 4 or 5 sources, because now AI isn't guessing, it's synthesizing. And what you get back are real numbers: rents, price per square foot, vacancy rates, the kind of things that make investors nod instead of skim. Now you're going to link in your brokerage website for branding. I want to make it look like you, and it's one of my favorite parts because branding used to be the slowest part of the process. Now you link your website, click Add Source, select website, and paste in your URL and let it index. And what happens is actually pretty impressive. The AI picks up on your colors, your tone, and your layout style and starts applying that to the deck. Now, small reality check. It's good, but it's not psychic. It might not grab your logo perfectly, so you still probably want to add that in the final polish. But instead of building design from scratch, you're starting 80% of the way there, which, if you've ever worked with a designer on version 12 of a slide, is truly a gift. Now, this slide pulls it all together. We've got 2 things happening here at the same time. First, you're bringing in hyper-specific market data, not national trends, not generic commentary, your exact submarket. Second, you're layering in your brand. So now the AI has both substance and style. And what comes out the other side is something that feels intentional, not generic and not templated, but specific to the deal and specific to you. And this is where you start to separate from everyone else who's still using last year's PowerPoint template and hoping that nobody notices. Now, this might be the most important slide in the whole presentation because this is where good becomes really great. A strong prompt has 4 key pieces. First is identity, second is the asset, third is sources, and fourth is branding. Now, I'm going to show you a simple version here. I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated in a few minutes. First is identity. Tell the AI who you are. Set the tone. Second is the asset. Be very specific. Address, type, unit count, don't make it guess. Third are your sources. Remind it what you uploaded so it actually uses that information. And fourth is branding. Tell it to match your website, your style, your look. And when you put all that together, you get something like this. And here's the important part. You don't need to overthink this. This isn't about writing the perfect prompt, at least not yet. It's about being clear, because the clearer you are, the better this gets. And the less time you spend fixing things later, which is the whole point of this exercise. Now, let me read this to you. Again, identity, sources, asset, branding. I am Loren Keim from Century 21 Commercial. My website is the source file. I need your help to create a new offering memorandum for 1563 Old Route 22. I've included several photos, a T12, a rent roll, and other information, including information on the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania market. Let's prepare a very professional offering memorandum using the colors, branding, logo, and style from my website for our new deal here. Now, that's as far as you really have to go. Now, again, we're going to take it a little further in a couple of minutes. Now, this is where things start to feel a little unfair in a good way. Once these documents are uploaded, you head over to Slide Deck, click the pencil, and now you've got a choice to make. And like most important decisions in life, this one comes down to 2 options. You can either go with Detailed Deck, or you can go with the one that actually makes you look good. The detailed version is thorough, lots of data, lots of text, great if your goal is to overwhelm someone into submission. But for anything client-facing, I think the winner is Presenter Deck. It's cleaner, more visual, has a better hierarchy, and most importantly, doesn't scream, "I built this at 2 a.m. the night before." Give it a few minutes to generate, and while it's working, feel free to go out and grab a coffee or pretend you did all of this manually. And this is the part that makes people a little uncomfortable, especially if they've been building decks the hard way for years. In about 15 minutes, you're going to get something that looks like it came out of an institutional shop. Your images are placed professionally. Your charts are generated automatically. Your data actually looks organized. And the key point here is there's 0 manual slide creation, which means you're no longer spending hours lining up boxes and adjusting fonts. You're spending time actually thinking about the deal. It's a subtle shift, but it's the difference between being a designer and, of course, being a deal maker. Now, before you get too excited and hit send, you've got to review it. The system typically gives you 15 or more slides, and honestly, most of them are going to look surprisingly good. I'm going to show you an example in a couple of minutes. You'll see everything you'd expect: a strong cover slide, investment thesis, photos laid out cleanly, market analysis, financial breakdowns, even a pro forma and a timeline. In other words, it didn't just make slides, it built a narrative. Now, your job isn't to create the deck, it's to refine it, which is a much better use of your time and a lot less painful. Now, this is where people accidentally slow themselves down. You can request revisions, but there is a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. Wrong way is to go in and say, hey, make slide 15 better, and then wait, and it does everything all over again. The right way is to be specific. Tell it exactly what to change, and it will go back to your source material and it will fix it. If you want a cleaner design, done. If you want a number pulled directly from your P&L, it'll find it. But here's the catch, and this is important. Every revision regenerates the entire deck and takes another 10 or 15 minutes. So if you make one tiny change at a time, you're basically signing yourself up for a very, very long afternoon. So go through and change every slide one by one, and then regenerate it at the end. This is one of those small ideas that make a big difference. Again, if you make edits one at a time, you're going to get stuck in what I call micro prompt trap. Ask for one change, wait. Ask for another change, wait. Question your life choices. Instead, batch your revisions. Give it 2, 3, 4, 5 changes in one prompt. Fix the P&L number, improve the slide layout, add an address. One generation and you're done. It's faster, it's more efficient, and most importantly, it keeps you from aging unnecessarily during the process. And in real estate, we've already got enough stress working against us, don't we? All right, so at this point, you've got a really strong deck. But before we send this out to the world, and potentially into somebody's investment committee, we do one more step, and that's polish. I'd download this as a PowerPoint. That becomes your working file. And then there are 4 things I recommend. First, go back through and verify the numbers. You can trust the AI, but not that much. Cross-check against your source docs. Second, upgrade your images. AI is good. Your professional photos are better, especially on the cover slide, because that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Third is to make sure you add your legal disclaimers and your contact information. The AI will not save you from your attorney. And fourth, personalize it. Tighten anything that feels generic. This is your deal. Make sure it sounds like it. All in, the step takes another maybe 30 to 60 minutes, and that's it. The AI did 80 to 90% of the work. You're just making sure that it doesn't embarrass you later. And if there's one slide you remember, and I probably say this too often, this is the one: trust but verify. The AI is pulling from your documents, building charts, summarizing data, but you still need to check it. Look for rounding issues. Make sure numbers tie out. Double check your market data sources, because once this goes out, it represents you. And in real estate, credibility is everything. You can recover from a bad deal, but you can't recover from bad numbers, can you? And this is where it all comes together. From one due diligence folder in about 15 minutes, you're getting a full offering memorandum, not a rough draft, not a starting point, a client-ready deck. You've got a branded cover and investment thesis, financial analysis with charts already built, market research pulled in automatically, your team, your process, your next steps. In other words, you've taken what used to be a multi-day project and turned it into something you can do between meetings, which is helpful because most of us barely have time between meetings to find lunch. Now, let's be honest for a second, because if this were perfect, I would be out of a job and some of you would be too. Here's what it does really well. It actually uses your data. It builds charts instantly. It pulls market context without you leaving the platform. And my personal favorite, right now it's free. That alone should make you slightly suspicious. Now, there are limitations. Again, no Excel integration, so yes, you still have to visit your old buddy occasionally. Revisions regenerate the whole deck, which is why batching matters. And it's not quite $30,000 design firm level, but here's the reality. For 95% of the deals, this is more than enough, and in some cases better than what you're doing anyway. And for the other 5%, if you're selling a trophy asset, congratulations, you can afford a designer and hire one. Now, let me go through a more complex master prompt for an offering memorandum. Now, again, we want to make sure it understands what we're looking at. Now, that prompt we used a few minutes ago will work 95% of the time. But I'm going to have you download this prompt and change it each time you're actually out there trying to put something together. Now, this is my master prompt. It's a couple of pages long, so bear with me. Create a professional 15 to 20 slide offering memorandum presentation for a multifamily property. Now, of course, if you're doing an industrial property, you're going to change that. Use the uploaded source documents to extract all property details, financial data, tenant information, and market data. Then I'm going to break this into buckets. Bucket 1 is branding requirements. What is your primary color? Mine is obsessed gray, and I've got the number for it. What's my accent cover? It's relentless gold, and I've got a code for that. Background, in my case, I want it clean white or very light gray. Typography, I'm using Oaks font with bold headings, and include, in my case, Century 21 commercial branding and the logo on the cover and footer. Property information, the address, the type of property, 21-unit multifamily and storage investment property. Size, 9.86 acres. And photos, use the uploaded property photos. Second one is our slide structure. Now here's what I want it to lay out. A cover page that includes a property photo, the address, the key metrics, and my branding. Number 2 slide is going to be a table of contents. Number 3 is going to be an executive summary, including the price and the cap rate. Number 4 are investment highlights. Number 5 is a property overview with building specs, year built, lot size. Number 6 is site plan or aerial. Number 7 is a grid of 4 to 6 images. I might make that 2 pages. Then a location map, regional context, and key distances. Number 9 is going to be location highlights. In this case, it's I-78 access. Then a tenant summary, a rent roll summary, a financial summary based on my T12 highlights and an NOI. And then I want it to create for me, because I don't have one in the example I'm going to use, a pro forma and returns, including an IRR and a cash-on-cash scenario. Then I want it to pull a market overview, and I'm going to search for that in a couple of minutes. Berks County and the Lehigh Valley statistics for this particular property. Demographics, population income data, and then contact information and disclaimer. Now I'm going to put something at the bottom. For design, I'm going to say use generous white space, body text of 24 point or greater, and titles of 36 point or greater, professional charts, and a confidential footer. And then down at the bottom, this is a critical component that helps it to be better. Ask me for additional details before running the prompt to give additional context if needed. I can't tell you how important that is when we're trying to build this. Now let's go in for a second and show you the screenshots I've done. Now over here on the left-hand side is what I've uploaded. Up at the top, I've just drag and dropped those photos of the property and a P&L and some other information on it. That's what I've dropped in there. I had also put in search for demographics in that location, and it pulled the sites for demographics over here. Now what it did was it put together a quick little blurb about this property based on this information. And it gives me some suggestions of what I might want to do with it. Now over here on the right, because this is Notebook LM, it allows me to create an audio overview of this property, a video overview where they talk about it, a slide deck, which is what I'm interested in, a report, even an infographic. So lots of interesting stuff here. Now what I'm going to do is put in down here that prompt I just created. And here it is. Create a professional 15 to 20 slide offering memorandum, presentation for a multifamily property, and so on. I put all of this together in here, and I hit go to make it start looking. And here's what happens. It starts building this, and it stops and comes back with questions. And here are the questions. I have reviewed your uploaded documents and can extract almost all the necessary information to meet your structure, including the property details, current rent roll, T12 financials, and the demographic data from Greenwich Township. However, as requested, ask for additional details before generating the presentation. And I need some clarification regarding slide 13, which is pro forma and returns. The current source documents don't contain an IRR or cash-on-cash return scenarios. So in order to be accurate, could you please provide me what a down payment would be, loan amount, interest rate, and amortization period? And under pro forma projections, what's the expected rent growth, projected expense changes, or post-renovation metrics? So it asks me those questions, and I can answer them for it. Now, then it actually created the deck, and let me show you what it came up with. Now, in this case, I told you not to use a detailed version, but that's exactly what I used. And this came up with somewhere around a 15-page deck. This is the property. It actually did put in the information on the front. It gave a headline, the address, the price, the highlights, cap rate, number of units, and the acreage. It put that together for me. Page 2 It has the highlights of the property, current NOI, as is cap rate. Very nicely laid out. Next page, current state stability and some upside potential. It pulled out some possibilities of what might be possible with this contract, with this project. Asset specifications, infrastructure. It built something on that. It then did a very nice layout of the entire property, showing the tax record overlaid with the land. Then it pulled out photos. Now, I'll be honest, of all the photos I loaded, these are not the ones I would have picked. So I could always go back and change these and correct them if I wanted to do that. That's not a problem. Then it blended together the tax parcel with an aerial of the project, gave some highlights like direct I-78 access, Lehigh Valley Commuter Corridor, and Berks County Hub. It has some demographic information about Greenwich Township. It goes into a diverse unit mix and what exactly is on the property. Goes into current revenue monthly to annually, which is fantastic. And it also points out the rents are currently positioned below market value, presenting an immediate opportunity for systematic escalations upon lease renewals. Trailing 12-month T12 financial summary, it broke that out for us. Gave me a cap rate of almost 12%. Does a 10-year pro forma. Now, this is not a spreadsheet that it built, but it shows what the targeted exit cap rate is. It shows what the rent escalations and expense escalations are, and the exit strategy. And then it gives you some market dynamics and submarket strengths. Again, Greenwich Township demographics, and then a final closeout slide. Now, I could have asked it for a lot of other information. I could go back in and edit this. I can make all sorts of changes, but I just loaded this the way it was. Now, this is using Notebook LM. Let's try something that maybe is a little different. In this case, I'm going to go to Claude. Now, Claude is going to cost you a little bit of money to run this. And if you haven't used Claude yet, you've got the chat system. You've got CoWork, which will actually work on your desktop, and it's got code for building anything you'd like to build. A really powerful software program. And of course, these AIs are getting more and more powerful by the day, so we'll see what happens with them next. Now, in this case, I uploaded once again the photos. I uploaded, I think, 10 or 12 photos, and I uploaded information on a P&L and some other stuff. And once again, I loaded that exact same description, branding requirements. You'll see it up here. I did the same one that I did for Notebook LM, and it came back with, I have a few questions before building the presentation. And it actually found some questions about it. Now, this one built a slightly different PowerPoint that I was able to download as well. Central 21 Commercial, Maiden Creek Village. Again, it took the tax record, the highlights, asking price, cap rate, number of units, and it's 100% occupied. Next page did give me a table of contents. I can't recall if the last one did or not. I don't think it did. So it missed that component, that slide. This gives me an executive summary, which looks very similar to the executive summaries you might see in many professional offering memorandums. Down here at the bottom, it actually has my contact information, that it's confidential offering memorandum, and information on the property. Next one, it gives the investment highlights, waterfront land, immediate double-digit yield, I-78 corridor, below market rent with an upside, ultra low operating expense ratio, and a recent CapEx move-in ready. Next page is a property overview with a lot of information. Does an aerial site plan, which is nice. Then it brought in 6 photos. These are slightly better than the photos the last one did. But again, we can move these around, change them out if I want to. And then a location map, once again, showing what's around it. Actually, this did not work well. And in Claude, I can go back in and say, I want you to edit this slide, make these changes. It does show how close they are. It doesn't really show a map of where they are. Again, location highlights, some information on the location. Goes into unit mix and summary, which is similar to what happened under Notebook LM. Again, this is Claude we're using this time. A rent roll summary it built for me. T12 financial summary with the highlights on the right-hand side. Pro forma it built for me, a simple one. An as-is conservative approach, a moderate with rent escalation, and an aggressive rent to market, showing a 5-year IRR of 22 to 26%. Again, this is all built out. I didn't give it an IRR. I didn't give it a pro forma. I gave it the rent and the expenses and then what we expected for the escalations, what we expected for some of the scenarios like an exit cap rate, and it built this for me. And a market overview, what's happening in the marketplace. Last couple of slides, demographics in Greenwich Township, average household income. I'm not sure where that pulled that from. Median average age or median age, township population. And then it did a ending cover slide as well, which is very nice. So again, this is a second version. Now the third version we might use is Manus. And Manus will do something very similar to Claude, but it does easily allow you to edit the slides within Manus. Manus a little bit pricier, but might be one of the best tools you can use. I recommend you check that out as well. So 3 different software programs that'll build these for you. And the most expensive one, Manus, is around $40 a month. I believe Claude right now is about $17 a month. And of course, Notebook at the moment is free. Now, one thing I want to point out, or several things I want to point out, after running this over and over again, a few patterns start to show up. First, I want to remind you to upload everything, and I mean everything. Files that you think are irrelevant, upload them anyway. Tax bills, inspection summaries, random PDFs you forgot you had, because the AI is surprisingly good at finding what actually matters as long as you give it enough context. And second, always use the presenter format. Now again, the first one I built used the detail format. Now every time I tested this, the presenter format actually looked better, cleaner, sharper, more client ready. The detailed version, by the way, is fine if your goal is to create a document nobody finishes reading. Now, again, you might want to do both of them because it doesn't cost you anything anyway, and see what works best. And then you may want to export them to PowerPoint and actually pick which slides you like and merge them together if you'd like. And third, write a specific prompt. If you say create an offering memorandum, you're going to get something very generic. If you give it your name, your company, the property, and tell it what files to reference, you save yourself 30 minutes of cleanup. And fourth, use sub-market specific research, not multifamily report, Lehigh Valley multifamily report, Orlando multifamily report, Indianapolis multifamily report. Specificity matters. And finally, batch your revisions, because if you don't, you're going to slowly realize you've been staring at your screen for an hour and a half and making 3 small changes. Now, here are some of the questions that everybody asks me at workshops. Can you use this for other property types? Well, yes, of course you can. Office, retail, industrial, multifamily, hospitality, anything. You just need the right inputs. Second is the data safe? Okay, Notebook LM is a Google product, so it follows their policies. But for anything highly sensitive, use common sense and check with your compliance team. In other words, don't upload your most confidential deal 5 minutes before asking legal. And what about weak branding? The AI will only work with what you give it. If your branding is, let's call it somewhat minimal, you can actually improve the output by telling it your colors, your fonts, and your styles directly in the prompt, which is what I did in my detailed prompt. And now again, does this replace a whole marketing team? Well, no, but it replaces the first 80% of the work. And for most deals, that's really all you need. Again, for your trophy assets, if you're listing a skyscraper in Manhattan, I'd bring in a designer. You're getting paid for that. But now you're choosing to because you're stuck. You have to do that. Now, this is really the takeaway. The traditional offering memorandum process, days and sometimes weeks, is no longer your only option. Now, in about 15 or 20 minutes, you can have a first draft done before lunch, not a rough outline, a real branded data-backed deck. And the process is simple. Create an account, upload your documents, add some research, write a really good prompt, and let the AI do the heavy lifting, which means you're spending less time building decks and more time doing the part of the job that actually makes some money. And this is where it becomes hard to ignore. Time to market, days or weeks versus 15 minutes. Financial charts, manual Excel work versus auto-generated directly from your files. And the cost? Hundreds or thousands in design fees versus free. Now there is a trade-off. With manual, you can tweak one slide at a time. With AI, you've got to batch changes. But when you step back and look at it, for 95% of the deals, this is a massive upgrade in efficiency. And the real advantage isn't just speed, it's consistency. Because the agents who win aren't always the ones with the best ideas. They're the ones who actually get to market first with something that looks professional. So here's a real takeaway, and this isn't about replacing what you do. It's about removing the friction between a deal and getting it in front of someone who can say yes. And right now, somebody somewhere in your market is going to start using this, and they're going to move faster, they're going to look sharper, and they're going to win deals that they might not have otherwise, and they might be taking it away from you. The only question is the person using this stuff going to be you or your competitor? Now, thanks for watching it today, and go build something.